Sup, bitches?
Autobots, suck my dick!
I'm a Michael Jordan.
Looks like you're going to the Shadow Realm, Jimbo.
I'm gonna fucking die here, Jack!
You're watching Fugitive Red-Eye, and welcome to another episode of Red-Eye Responds. Today we'll be looking at a Wendigoon video, and I'll only just be taking a look at a couple portions of it. I really like Wendigoon, so obviously this is not meant to be any hate on him, and I like this video too. It's actually a really good video for the most part. But there were a couple of little things he got wrong, one of which I actually think he edited out later on, because you can do that now, and I think that is the case. So we'll go over that a little bit when we start talking about Hong Kong 97, but for now, I'm going to jump in to his latest video game, Iceberg, because there's just a couple of little details he got wrong, and it was pretty noticeable to me being familiar with the games in question. So let's just jump in and take a look at it. So first off, we're going to take a look when he starts talking about Postal.
The first entry of Postal, which was developed by Running with Scissors, was released in 1997.
Now, as you can see, he said he's including the first entry of the Postal series. That's important. Remember that.
If I had to describe Postal to someone who wasn't familiar with it, I would describe it as what boomers think GTA is. You know how you always hear on the news, they're like, oh, in GTA, the goal of the game is to run people over and then shoot them with guns and light them on fire. And it's like, sure, you can do that, but that's not really like, what the game's about. In Postal, that is absolutely what the game is about. It's very satirical and very over-the-top in its presentation, but graphic nonetheless. Sure, a lot of games will let you set someone on fire or shoot them, but in Postal, you can pee on their corpse, which is really what it's all about. It's graphic and over-the-top because that's exactly what it sets out to be.
Okay, all that stuff he described is literally just Postal 2. And you don't have to actually do any of the stuff he's saying. He's just incorrect in saying that you are required to kill people in Postal. That is not the objective of the game, at least not in Postal 2. In Postal 1 it is, yes. In Postal 1 it's literally just a game where you go on a mass shooting. Postal 2, to beat the game, literally all you have to do is complete your checklist of errands that you're supposed to do. Obviously, people are gonna fuck around in Postal 2, that's kind of the fun of it, so in a way it is kind of the point, but it's literally not required. Just like it's not required in GTA, so again, it's kind of odd that he would say, GTA you're not required to do this, but in Postal you are. You're really not, at least not in Postal 2. Again, Postal 1 is literally just mass shooting simulator, that's literally all it is. But Postal 2, not so much. And you can't piss on people in Postal 1, so it's a bit odd he includes so much of Postal 2 while describing Postal 1, allegedly. But again, he doesn't really mention anything about Postal 1 itself. Thinking back to it, he might have just been talking about Postal as a franchise, and Postal 2 is much more indicative of 3 and 4 than 1 is. And in fairness, he did say Postal 2 is the one people are most familiar with. However, I think it's just a bit odd. He maybe should have made that distinction, or at least pointed out the differences in what Postal 1 is. Or maybe just made it clear he was just talking about the franchise as a whole. I also realized he never actually said you're required to do it, he just said it's the point of the game. Which, I mean, yeah, kinda, but still, I think it could lead people to believe that you're required to do that in 2, which you're not. Alright, now on to Hong Kong 97. So, I remember originally there was a thing in here where he said it was released on cartridge and floppy disk. I think he edited that out, which is good, because he was incorrect. It was never officially released on cartridge. It was a bootleg game made for floppy disks. And he'll bring up Happy Soft, which we'll get into here.
Starting with our first entry, Hong Kong 97, which was developed by Happy Soft.
Yeah, Happy Soft is one guy, Kowloon Kurosawa. And, that guy is a total shit poster. He's a troll. He literally made the game as kind of a fuck you to Nintendo for, not for sending him a cease and desist for bootlegging their games and making it easier for people to pirate stuff. Now we're moving on to the Aum Shinrikyo game, the one that a lot of people thought was made by a cult. There's only a couple of little things here I want to attack, so here we go.
The story of Kamikushiki Village was supposedly created by the Aum Shinrikyo cult. Now, in reality, it was developed by Happy Soft Games in 1995, the same people, mind you, who did Hong Kong 97. However, several theories come back into play and state that if the game wasn't made by a cult, it was made with the help of some cult members, as many of the videos and photos that are seen in the game don't come from any mainstream news or documentary sources that covered the cult's actions. So perhaps elements of this game were put together by disgruntled cult members. Either way, seeing killers portrayed in this kind of comedic light with the knowledge that perhaps these elements were made by people who were complicit with the murders when they happened is disturbing to say the least.
Okay, yeah, right here where he says that the game was potentially made with cult members. I just don't think that's true. As I said, Happy Soft is one guy, Kowloon Kurosawa. It's not a real company. It's just a fake company name he made up for making his bootleg games. And from what I understand, and I'm getting a lot of this information from an interview I saw on Ultra Healthy Video Game Nerds channel. I'll link that interview in the description. But it's kind of implied that he just did this to just be as edgy as possible, and he kind of regretted making the game. There's no indication that I would have that he actually had any sort of work or cooperation from any of the cult. Obviously, I can't prove this 100%, but Kowloon Kurosawa himself in the interview said that that wasn't the case. So, again, obviously he could be lying, but I just don't think it's likely that he was actually involved with the cult, especially if the game was insulting the cult. I know he said it could have been disgruntled cult members. I just don't buy it. Like I said, I watched the interview with Kowloon Kurosawa, and he briefly mentioned this game. It was an interview about his entire career. So there certainly could have been details that were glossed over, and it might not be something you would want to readily talk about, but the guy talked about a lot of really shady shit, so I'd be surprised that he was hiding talking to a cult member while making the game. It just doesn't seem like the kind of thing he'd hide with all the shit he was willing to say. I just don't think it's likely he'd hide the fact that he had a contact that was a cult member. So I think saying that is reaching a bit, but that's all I really had to say today. Like I said, I like Wendigoon. This is nothing against him, but there you go. And like I said, it was obviously a good video, and I'm glad he was willing to correct it. Like I said, he edited out the part about it being released on cartridge. Wendigoon is known for fixing his mistakes, so props to him for that. Wendigoon is one of my favorite YouTubers, so obviously this is in no way or shape or form meant to shit on him. I actually think it's really good he corrected that issue. And like I said, maybe the Postal thing was a misunderstanding. Maybe he was talking about the franchise as a whole. I just think it's a bit odd he glossed over just how drastically different Postal 1 is from the rest of the franchise. Anyway, that's all I have to say. I hope you enjoyed. Have a good one. Toodles.
Subscribe, the Fiji Red Eye.